Now for some fun ones where we have to come up with the equation and even do some word problems. So let's take a look at some of these. Now when we're finding the equation, I find it helpful to write out kind of the template for what I'm looking for. And I'm just going to put question mark, question mark. I'm not going to put A and B because I don't know which one are A and B necessarily right now. But what do I need to know? I need to know H and K, which is the center because it's going in up there. And then I need to know A squared and B squared because they're going in the denominators. Well, I've plotted what I know. I know that there are foci at -5, 2, and -5, 8, as you see here. I know that there's one vertex at -5, 0, okay? Well, I know that the foci are in the direction of the major axis. All right, so that tells me my major axis is vertical. I'll just hold on to that for a minute, okay? I also know that there's that symmetry involved. I know that the foci are, you start at the center and you go away from it up and down or right and left depending on how it goes. So I had to have gone up and down the same amount from a place to get to these foci. Well, let's see, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 apart. It's kind of hard to tell, but I can look from 2 to 8 and see that that's a distance of 6. The center then should be how far in between them? 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. I have identified the center of my ellipse to be -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guess what I know? H and K. So I have x minus -5, which is +5, squared, over, later to be determined, y minus 5 squared, over, later to be determined. I know this thing is going to be equal to 1. Now for all the later to be determined business. Okay, I know from the center to a vertex or an endpoint of a major axis, that amount squared is going underneath y. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps away. 5 squared is 25. That's going here. Okay? So I've got a lot of information about the up and downness, but what about the right and left? Well, I'm going to need some help with that, and it's going to have to come from that c squared equals a squared minus b squared business. Remember, there's the big, there's the small. And what is c? C is the distance from the center to a focus. Well, the distance from a center to a focus is 1, 2, 3 in this particular example. That means C is equal to 3. 3 squared is equal to, well, I already know the big one is 25, and now I'm able to solve for b squared. 9 is equal to 25 minus b squared. You can probably already figure out what it is. Let's say I added b squared to both sides and subtracted 9. B squared is 16, and that's what goes here. We have found the equation of this ellipse. Awesome. Now for a couple of word problems. I'm not going to read this. Pause the video and read it. Okay, I'm glad you're back. Now we're going to try to put this information on an axis, and if possible you want to let your center be at 0, 0 because that just makes things so much easier to work with. So let's kind of map off what we've got. The center of the arch is 6 meters above the river, so I'm going to let this be the top of the arch, and I know this is at 6. It's 20 meters wide. If I've put the center here in the middle, then this at 10 and this at -10. All right, so what are we trying to figure out? Well, first of all, we're trying to figure out an equation for the ellipse, so we will do that. And that's actually all we need to do in this case. Okay, great. So I need this, the equation for this, all right? Well, if I'm centered at the origin, this is x squared plus y squared equals 1, and denominators waiting to be determined. Well, this is pretty easy to figure out, isn't it? If we're going to the left and the right 10, then under here is 10 squared, or 100. If I am going up and down 6, then I would have y squared divided by 6 squared, which is 36, and that is equal to 1. Okay, they didn't ask us this, but I think they should have asked us this. How high is the arch if you're 3 meters from the shore? Okay, so let's say here's the shore, 3 meters in from here, and we want to know what is that height. Well, if I was at 10 and I came in 3 meters, well, that's terribly inaccurate, but I am at 7, right? So I would know my x coordinate would be 7. So I can just plug in 7 for x and solve this equation for y and get what that is. I'll figure it out and write it in before I save the video, but we won't take the time to solve that equation. Let's move on to our last example. There is a beautiful, amazing example of this at NC State University, kind of near D.H. Hill Library. So I encourage you to go and check this out. Again, pause the video and read this problem, and then we'll be back together. Okay, so again, helpful to center this at the origin, just makes all the calculations easier. So that's going to be x squared over something plus y squared over something is equal to 1. It tells us the hall is 100 feet in length, so I've got from negative 50 to 50, there's 100. And the foci are 25 feet from the center. Now, I know they have to be left and right because of the context of the problem. We're not going to have people up and down, so that tells me I'm going to have horizontal foci, which also tells me I have horizontal major axis. Okay, then that means the distance from the center to a endpoint of the major axis or vertex is my A. This is A squared because it's horizontal, so it's going to be x squared over 50 squared, which is 2,500. Okay? Now, for y squared, or its denominator, again, I'm not exactly, that's kind of what I'm trying to find out, isn't it? How high does the center of the ceiling need to be? Well, once I know the denominator of y, I'll be able to figure this out. Well, it's related to the foci again. From the center to a focus is a distance of c. So c is 25. Remember our relationship. C squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. So 25 squared is equal to 2,500, that was a squared, minus b squared. All right, so 25 squared is 625, is equal to 2,500 minus b squared. Solving this for b squared, 2,500 minus 625 is 1875, which, by the way, is the denominator here. And so this is equal to 1. Here's the equation. The question is, how high will the ceiling be at the center, where it's going to, I said where? Well, it's going to be square root of 1875, which we will give as a decimal because that's how we would use that, is approximately 43.3 feet. So the center of the ceiling will need to be about 43.3 8.3 feet high for this whispering gallery to work.